health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate.
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's virtual event. As a dedicated volunteer with AARP, I'm delighted to welcome you to a virtual event that's close to our hearts. Our mission at AARP is to enrich the quality of life for individuals as they age through proactive advocacy, impactful service, and the dissemination of valuable information that champions positive social change. In today's event, we're diving into the dynamic concept of disrupt aging. Disrupt aging is about celebrating the diversity of aging experiences through personal stories, images, and a variety of perspectives, fostering a community that is not defined by a single voice, but is inclusive of the many voices advocating for change. Together, we'll challenge outdated beliefs about aging and to ignite new solutions for a future where every individual can age with dignity, purpose, and endless possibilities. Let's engage, learn, and be inspired to view aging through a new lens. Welcome to this journey of discovery and transformation. We also invite you to join the AARP volunteer team to make a difference in the caregiving community.
Hello and welcome to Health Huddles. This is a series hosted by AARP Illinois to empower those that are 50 older in their health and wellness journey. I'm Lori Hendren, the Senior Associate State Director of AARP Illinois, and I'm excited to have you joining us at today's virtual event. For many, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we advocate for what matters most to those over 50 and plus, whether it's health security, financial stability, personal fulfillment. In Illinois, we represent 1.7 million members, and we advocate for all those that are 50 plus. Today's session, in continued partnership with the Illinois Department of Public Health, is focused on empowering our community with knowledge on public health topics. And today we're going to be talking about isolation. If you joined us earlier this week, we were talking with a therapist on isolation, and we're going to be talking with the department here today on it as well. Our expert in the field is Dr. Deb Patterson-Bursall. She has earned her MSN and PhD from the University of Iowa College of Nursing. She's been working with the Institute in the Illinois Department of Public Health with a focus on congregate care settings in Illinois, and she works to find evidence-based and cost-effective infection prevention strategies for long-term care. I got it all out. So we're honored to have you here. We've been working, I feel, a very long time since COVID together. So all of you that are joining us today, we encourage you to put your questions or comments in the social feed, and so we can be able to see them and we can ask the doctor herself, because this is about talking with you and having a great conversation. So let's start, doctor. What are the main causes of social isolation in seniors? And go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. Isolation with older adults, just a little bit of background for me. I started working in long-term care when I was 18, and I retired from the same long-term care facility that I worked in 2016. So I worked there a long time. And the one thing that you notice about human beings is sometimes if they don't feel like they have a lot to contribute, they will tend to pull back from a situation. And the situations that we had with COVID just compounded that because, hopefully nobody that's alive now in their lifetime will have to live through another situation like we had with the pandemic. But when you have forced separation, forced isolation, I noticed in the little film that went before we talked here, how much intergenerational, all those little vignettes and how that intergenerational thing is so important. Well, in with COVID, for very good reasons, there were reasons why we had to separate families from each other. And sometimes I think the older adults tend to get forgotten, maybe, as people are and I'm an older adult too. So that's the other thing. I'm an AARP member. But it's really easy to get pulled into your own silo, and especially with all that went on before, and sometimes still the fear of becoming sick and doing other things like that. It's really challenging for people, because sometimes to be social and not be isolated really takes some effort that some people just can't manage at certain times. So it's important for other parts of the family, of the social group, to reach out, and AARP is very good at promoting that.
This week, I feel like we've talked a lot about isolation. And so, how does isolation impact the mental and the physical health of
Oh,
seniors? I mean, I'm going to take two angles here. You talk about when he was in COVID with nursing home residents, and then let's talk about today how the isolation still is prevalent and it still can have that same impact.
oh yes. I mean, when people are pulled out of their own social group, whether it be within a long-term care facility, because there are social groups within long-term care, or away from their church, away from their community, um, you get into habits, and it's very hard to get back into the more social model. Since the 1980s, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, a lot of people have really focused on that social person-centered care in long-term care and in nursing homes. But because of the disruption of COVID, it's going to take a while to get back to the point where people are fully functional and really focusing on getting people out of their rooms or out of their apartments and engaged in the social activities in the community. It's getting better, but it still isn't at 100%. It really isn't. So that's in nursing homes. In nursing homes, the other thing that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CDC, and HCPAC, which is the organization that sets some of the guidance for CDC, has worked on, is reducing the isolation that is required in certain cases for people who live in nursing homes. It's called enhanced barrier precautions. So it's another level of transmission-based precautions that, rather than locking people in their rooms and not letting them come out, enhanced barrier precautions encourages, if people have clean hands, clean clothes, clean equipment, contained drainage, and covered wounds, they can come out of their room and participate in social activities, meals, activities, daily activities of daily living. And in the community, once again, it's going to take a while, because the other thing that's happened, we're doing it ironically, rather than face to face, we've spent a lot of time on Zoom, on WebEx. I mean, I'll just give brands, because each platform you have to sort of learn. And I know that I was talking to my father-in-law, and who is 90, and he just recently started going back to church. But before that, he was very comfortable staying in his house and watching his church services on his computer. But he made a really astute comment. He said, you don't get that after service communication with other people. You don't get the ability to interact. And I don't know about you, Lori, but I'm finding that social conversations, I'm having to relearn how to do some social comments, because when we're dealing with a screen, it's very different than dealing with a live person. But the screen, even though you're interacting with people in a certain way, can really be sort of isolating, because once you're off the screen, you're not doing much. And we know from COVID what happens to people cognitively, physically, physiologically, spiritually, when they're kept away from other human beings. We are, in essence, pack people. We need our communities. We really do. And so encouraging people to almost force themselves to get out there and participate in some sort of social activities is really important.
So, what happens if there's a difference between enjoying solitude, right? Doing your hobbies, you like it by yourself, and then isolation? What happens if isolation can continue mentally? Can depression kick in, or what are some kind of triggers where you or a caregiver can say, "Mom, Dad, husband, I think we should probably go out to do something where other people are just even slowly, just as you say, to make that connection."
We know that social isolation. Now there are people who tend to be more gregarious, and people who tend and need more of that social interaction, and then some people that don't. But it isn't really an all or nothing phenomenon. Even people who have, that need for solitude at certain times also need that socialization, because it is very easy to get caught up in your own thoughts, caught up in your in at behaviors and activities that promote that isolation. But then also, depending on where a person is as far as their mindset goes, can increase the risk of deconditioning. So, lack of activity, lack of both physical and social emotional, and as well as cognitive. It really can have an impact on a person's um, abilities, create an issue with depression, create an issue with exacerbating memory loss, whole lot of things if people are not engaged and interacting,
Hmm.
at least with other people.
So let's
Does
talk
that make
about
sense?
no, that's great. So let's talk about if you have a loved one in a nursing home and you're the caregiver. Um, there's activities, and tell us why those activities are important, or what are some good examples of activities that your loved one should be engaging in if they can in a long-term care facility. I think
It-
that's a real issue that caregivers may see, okay, mom, there's bingo, or there's a game, or there's a craft or activity. Mom doesn't want to do it. I don't know them. But what's, I guess, the conversation for the caregiver? Say, maybe a good idea because.
Even getting out to meals sometimes is a habit. Getting that habit of people eating in their rooms versus eating out in the dining room, you know, that social awareness, you lose the social awareness. And it was always, I will tell you, from the time that I started in the 70s, it was always a focus on encouraging people to get out of their rooms. I come from a faith-based, not-for-profit environment. So there was church every day, and then there was chapel on Sunday. And one of our focuses, both as when I worked there as a nurse's aide and when I worked there as a nurse, was getting people dressed, ready to go, and out. And so that whole concept of encouraging getting people out of their rooms and encouraging people to get to activities. And the way the rules are written, if it shouldn't just be bingo all the time. We had a wide variety in our care communities, wide variety of things that people could participate in, everything from bridge to painting, to art, to gardening. And as the rules changed, because it's long-term care, as the rules changed, the number of activities increased, because you really wanted to focus on, and you really want to focus on what people are interested in. Whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's gardening. And a lot of nursing homes looking for a long-term care facility that has those options, outings, a whole lot of things like that, cooking, baking, the activities of life should continue into a long-term care facility, um, you know, as people are available. And I mean, it's just really important.
So, what are some of the barriers to social resources for isolated seniors, and how can we overcome those? I mean, I imagine transportation would be one.
Transportation, and there are a lot of different social, the ability to use, like in our area, we have PACE. There are organizations that help with transferring, moving activities, things like that, getting out into the community. Also, too, the emphasis definitely has to be put on getting people up and out of their rooms if it's if it's a congregate care setting, if it, like a skilled nursing facility. Generally, most assisted living have activities where people can go out to plays and things like that. My stepmom lives in a senior living facility, or it's not a facility, a senior living organization, and they take people all over the place. It just, but it's for the family members, making sure that people are aware of those opportunities and really encouraging them to take advantage of those opportunities rather than to stay in the room or their apartment, because sometimes that's just easier. And if it seems easier, you may have to be looking at, is a person becoming depressed? Is a person becoming, is there another reason for them being isolated? Something as simple as managing incontinence, because that can be really embarrassing, and making sure that you get down to the reason why a person doesn't really want to participate in different things.
Yeah, that was because, we had a conversation earlier this week, and she was even bringing in the therapist about not being able to hear could be a barrier. So if your loved one and your caregiver is really hesitant, how do you have the conversation? How do you encourage them to go out and go to a senior center, or if you're in a nursing home, encouraging them to go be part of the various activities, or even to go dine with others? How does a caregiver communicate that to their loved one?
So sometimes people need help, because a lot of times if it's the caregiver is like daughter, son, somebody like that, having the child tell the parent what to do sometimes can put an interesting dynamic on things. And so sometimes the healthcare provider can help with that, just encouraging those sorts of things, encouraging activities, encouraging exercise, getting people moving. That was one of the first things I learned in nursing school, was about the hazards of immobility. Well, that can also be social immobility as well, where people just don't get out. So to encourage, the more voices that are encouraging in a gentle way to have people get out, also to find the root cause of why a person doesn't want to maybe participate, and maybe finding ways around that. It could be everything from they don't like their table mates to, like you mentioned, Lori, somebody mentioned earlier, they're having a hard time seeing and hearing, so they're not enjoying activities. There are a lot of resources, amplifiers, a whole lot of different things that can be used. But really having conversations with the person, talking to the person, not at them, talking to them about why it would be that they don't want to, if it's a problem, why they don't want to participate in activities.
Yeah, and I would imagine some individuals, they've lived their whole life maybe very outgoing, and some physical or mental challenges happening, and it's new to them, and they almost can't put a finger on it and be able to verbalize it and being able to have that conversation. I just know that we hear a lot as we work in AARP. Mom was very outgoing, but hearing loss went down. She didn't want to leave, and she was immobile, and then depression came in, and then panic attack stuff. And it just kind of rolls to where at that point when someone may reach out for help, they're just so overwhelmed. They're so fearful of moving. And when they do get out, they have panic attacks, which breaks my heart, because you see the transition, and maybe early on they didn't know what was happening. So nursing home, I know we're jumping back and forth. If you have a loved one in nursing home, what should you be seeing, and what should the administrators of the nursing home be doing to prevent this isolation and long-term care settings for their residents?
Well, that's if you don't know what's going on for an administrator or an owner or, anybody else like that, getting out and seeing what's actually happening on the floor and, on the units, and making sure that, you know, activities are a priority rather than a side, a secondary thing. That's critically important if you're talking about nursing homes. Making sure that, and then if you're a caregiver or a loved one, making sure that you understand what's available. It takes a little bit of research sometimes to know what's available. I know I miss stuff because I, forget, you get busy, but really understanding there are calendars there's a whole lot of things that are required, that it's really important for people to get out. I'm looking at Will's question.
No, no,
Um,
sure.
my
Will's
dad.
our producer, everyone.
Hi,
So,
Will.
so
My
thank you
dad.
guys for your questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Questions are great. My dad's in the habit of staying home. His response to everything is no. What are some tools to get him out? That's a really good question. What did he like to do? And what can he still do? Here's another thing, just from being in congregate care settings for a long time. If people aren't supported at the right level, say you have somebody in assisted living. Assisted living is really not meant for skilled care, and they have some memory loss, and it's not a memory loss unit. They have some memory loss. They have some physical ability, concerns. Getting down to the root of why that no is being said is really important, because it could be literally he I mean, I'm just going off as an example. Um, I've known people who didn't want to get out of the house because they were afraid of soiling themselves. And they didn't know that there are like adult products now that can help them stay secure when they're out in an activity. So that it's just easier to stay home close to the toilet because I'm not going to have, problem. It's the other thing too. If they're having some mild cognitive impairment, having conversations with people and making sure that they are with people who are they're secure with, and won't put them on the spot asking a question that they just don't know the answer to or can't formulate the answer to. Even drives out in the community, like driving around familiar places, just getting people out for car rides, doing things like that, something to get them out of their house and out of the habit of always being home is really
Mhm.
important.
All right. So tell for all listeners, I'm sure you all know, but what is cognitive
I'm
loss of
sorry.
function? No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay.
Memory loss,
Okay.
mild memory loss. And, very mild memory loss, where a lot of times you don't even really know what's going on, because in social situations, people can hide that they don't remember people's names, and they used to always be really good at it, and now they can't remember. And so that's embarrassing. And, they're afraid they're going to be asked a question that is going to put them on the spot. Everybody know that's a human thing.
Mhm.
You're trying to make people feel secure. I moved from Arkansas back to Illinois 2 years ago. I live in a small rural town. Having difficult time meeting and making friends. I'm active. And you take it, so a very active person who takes care of 5 acres, that takes a lot of effort. Um, there are social clubs, there are
Mhm.
churches. I don't know what your faith base is, but, a lot of times getting into that type of a community and trying different churches and trying different, social groups. Volunteering, if you're taking care of 5 acres, there may be a situation in a small town. I don't know if you have community gardens or something like that, that might be, going to the village hall and asking what types of volunteer opportunities there are. Um, volunteering in schools. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. This is Department on Aging. There's the volunteer website. There's a lot of different ways to get yourself engaged and out there. And I know sometimes it's really scary. I mean, it really is. You come into a new area or a new, you know, a new town, especially a smaller rural town where everybody pretty knows everybody else, and sort of being the new kid on the block can be challenging. But the more that you reach out to people, going to the public health department, going to the town hall, going to the library, if it has a library in town or the closest library.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you for reaching out because,
Yes.
interesting enough, I have family members that live in Arkansas and they used to live in Illinois. So welcome back to Illinois from Illinois.
Yes.
So we love you and we would love to have you volunteer with AARP. We are very busy all over the state. And so I know our producers putting that information in there, but we understand that transportation is hard. And also look to that website with IDOA.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're savvy to join us here today. If you look on there, go to where your county is, and it will be the wealth of information for your area agency on aging. That is going to have a whole host of great resources and contacts, but also we're putting in our information for AARP because fabulous. So we have another question here. For those of us living on our own, not in care settings, can you address remaining social when many in our circle have died or moved away? Tough question. Great one. Thanks.
Great question. Okay, so my grandmother lived to be 100. And one of the things that she said that was very astute was it's always good to have friends from different generations because of this exact same thing that would happen. Because most of her friends, because she lived to be 100, most of her friends were gone by the time she passed. So that's where potentially volunteering in the schools. I know our district has a senior reading program where we have seniors coming in and reading to the children, in first and second grade. I do that and it's a lot of fun. But I also meet like the teachers and, like I say, volunteering is really a great way to get into a different social setting. We belong to a chorus, my husband and I do, where we have people from 86 to 18, some sort of reaching out. But like Lori said, there are places to find options and things that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I'm going to say another plug with AARP or Alzheimer's Association or whatever organization that you're passionate about. I know we all have like community events, virtual events. I mean, for AARP, you could lobby with us, or you could be local. You could help with the movies for grownups. And really, it's about being part of a community and being able to find that right step. So your first step, you've joined us today. Kudos to you. That's wonderful. And that's great. I'm going to go back to another question we have here, Deb. So I'm going to take it from a senior who is living in their home and they're feeling some anxieties about this, about taking that step. What are some reassurances to get them to go? What you would say that would just to say it's okay to do it and it's going to be safe. And it may not feel like the perfect answer, but you're taking that step. And that is so huge. I mean, I don't think there's enough understanding or really respect for that because, for all of our life, we've done this 8 to 5 job and we've had to go. And by Friday nights, we're exhausted. And by Saturday, we're like, I don't want to talk to anyone. But that changes when you're retired and it changes when you get older. So let's talk about that first step and understanding that anxieties. Go ahead.
Do you remember the first day of school? We moved around a lot. So I got pushed into schools in different states all over the place. And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. That first day where you stood at the door of that classroom and you walked in. Human beings are pretty much the same throughout their lives. So that anxiety is perfectly natural and it's okay. But even baby steps, I mean, even like getting transportation someplace and, scoping out the building, going into the lobby, picking up some information, talking to one person, a lot of times if you do it step by step by step, sometimes it makes it much easier to get yourself engaged, and it has to be something you're interested in too.
Absolutely. So we have one more great question. Doctor, what happens when you've been a caregiver for so long? Now you're in the position that you need help and it's hard.
Yeah, that is such an insightful thing to say because you've always been the one that was the go-to person that it was like, no, I'll take care of this, I'll take care of that. And that concept of having to reach out and ask for help for yourself, sometimes it feels like it's going to be no, 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 that's okay. I can handle this. I can do this by myself. And sometimes you can't. I've been there, done that. And it is hard, but it's one of those things that just baby steps to doing it. First of all, thinking about or asking a trusted friend. Sometimes if you've got a trusted friend who's just not going to say, yes, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, but will really give you gentle answers, having somebody to talk to really scope out what position you're really in and where you may need the help and how that help will support you maintain your independence too.
Oh, getting myself off mute. That is wonderful. So we've come to our half hour, and I want to say first, thank you for everyone who joined us. We welcome you, and we're so thankful you took time from your day and you took that first step and you joined us. On behalf of ARP, behalf of the Department of Public Health, this is why we're having these conversations, talking about issues that well, they may not be talked about, and doing it in a very safe and secure way to help you get that information. So, Doctor, we want to thank you. Any closing remarks you want to have for listeners today?
Just be gentle with yourself. It's scary. It really is. And as things change and, getting older, it's a blessing, but it's dealing with sometimes with a lot of losses. And, the more that you can incorporate being kind to yourself, understanding that this is just a human condition, but also, taking little steps, step at a time, just like to reach out is also really important.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Department of Public Health, for everything you've done. We've been doing these for a couple of months, and every month we do this, I learned something, and I feel more empowered to do my job better and to connect. To everyone watching ARP, we're serious. We're here to connect with you, to strengthen your community, advocating for you in the State House on issues as in long-term care, nursing homes, caregiving, financial security, and for personal fulfillment. But we want to thank you for joining us today. This was a big step. For more information at www.aarp.org/Illinois. We're here to support you, and we look forward to connecting with you more for upcoming events. Stay informed, and we want you to stay healthy. After this, there's going to be a QR code. If you've never done it before, grab your phone, hold your phone up, put your camera to the QR code, and a little yellow box is going to pop up on your phone. Tap that and you'll get more information of upcoming virtual events that you too can engage with. Hey, this is a first step and we love having you. So thank you and have a wonderful weekend. As always, Doctor, we appreciate you so much. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Thank
Bye-bye.
you for attending.
Here are 6 items you should consider.